I call the member for Thuringowa.
Speaker, I rise to support the Voluntary Assisted Dying Bill 2021. I'll be on the right side of history on this bill. I want to start by thanking the Premier, Deputy Premier, Health Minister, for taking Queensland with them on this well-considered 3-year journey. How difficult it is to reflect on 3 years of work in just 10 minutes. And I'll start by thanking every single person who wrote to us, who came before us, 45 public hearings in total, 11,000 submissions in total, hundreds of people sharing their deeply personal stories, like Peter in Rockhampton with motor neuron disease, or John Ancliffe, who was here yesterday, or Kelly in Gladstone, who spoke about her husband Matt, or Marge Lawrence in Townsville, talking about her husband. By passing this bill, we'll finally give those suffering a terminal illness in Queensland the choice to go out on their terms with dignity, to end the misery, the awful, intolerable, needless suffering. I hope that by passing this bill, we give comfort to those who are diagnosed with a terminal illness and their families, and they have the right and the choice to die with dignity. Death is inevitable. We'll all face it. No one wants to die. As our dear friend Duncan told us, people fight every day to live. When the pain and suffering is too much, we need to provide choice. It's timely to recall our dear friend Duncan, and former member for Stretton, who stood bravely in this very parliament and said we needed to listen to those suffering a terminal illness. Well, I can say after 3 years, Duncan, we listened. Great confidence. We listened. Those shared experiences, we read the pictures, we saw the photos, we saw the people that came before us, some suffering a terminal illness themselves, were incredibly difficult to hear, but we heard all of them, and many were simply heartbreaking. Loved ones shared stories of their family members or friends begging to end it all. Some had stopped eating or drinking to try and bring their death forward. But as we heard, many suffered for days and weeks, begging staff and loved ones to end their suffering. I hope this extensive work leads to the bill being passed. We heard of people taking their own lives in dreadful ways. We heard from Amy Gomez last night, paramedic, talking about a lady who jumped off the roof of a residential aged care facility. We heard about from palliative care nurse and former paramedic Phil Brown, who broke down recounting the cases he'd attended, where a gunner was present, laying beside the body of the person who had gone to, diagnosed with a terminal illness, who blew his own head off. Imagine the family finding these people and the traumatic memories of the scenes remaining with them forever. I recall reading one of the police officers' submissions from Townsville, an almost identical case he attended in Thuringowa some 20 years ago. Clearly that image still is with him to this day, and I don't want to talk about the cases I've attended. It is difficult because you have to read the note, and it's just too traumatic. The last 3 years, our current health committees had the courage of the bill, and it's been a challenge emotionally, and some have said that it might have been a heavy burden listening to all of these, but it's nothing like the burden of those who are facing death through a terminal diagnosis. The one thing I can reflect on is everyone we spoke to could relate. They knew of someone who had suffered at end of life. I've seen many people at end of life in my own career, not just patients or work colleagues, but family. In this last 3 years, I lost my older brother to bladder cancer. And sister-in-law, brain cancer. All I can remember was my younger brother saying, "I don't want to watch her suffer." We need to provide choice. We need to be compassionate. This is hard. There's a lot of people that joined us on this journey, and I want to acknowledge them. Dying with Dignity Queensland, Joss Hall, Jeanette Wiley, Craig Glasby, Clem Jones Trust, David Muir, Lindsay Marshall, Uniting Church Elder, what a character, Everald Compton, Doctors for Assisted Dying, Sid Finnegan, Nurses for Assisted Dying, sorry about my nose, Vale, QNMU, every nurse who wrote and came before us. Thank you. My dear friend, she's been a rock. a member for Palmerston, all the members of the committee, we all shared this, and it was tough. Uwu, United Workers Union, Bob Hartley, and every paramedic who came before us, thank you. Go Gentle Australia, Andrew Denton, Frankie and Nikki, thank you. ETU, Stewie Trail, the late Peter Simpson, and Penny Toby. To very special constituents, Marge Lawrence and Jane Musamichi, who are watching this now. I know you are in Townsville. Thank you very much, and to Dr Will Cairns, who came down from Townsville just recently. QUT Professors Ben White and Lindy Wilmot, you're amazing. Former Speaker Peter Wellington, who had a private conversation with me back in 2015. Members of the Health Committee, thank you, all of you. To our Secretariat, one who's facing cancer and battling it right now, thank you. We're thinking of you, Jackie. I used a lot of time flying back and forth to Townsville, and try and find the time to read is difficult in any circumstance, but I used those hours to read every single one of those submissions. People thought I must have been a bloody wreck because tears would just flow from the eyes, just reading the stories and looking at pictures of emaciated loved ones suffering at end of life. I've often said shared real-life experiences are incredibly powerful. It's now Queensland's time to allow people to die with dignity. To those who oppose, please, don't hide behind the rhetoric of palliative care. It's been addressed. Show compassion, show empathy, show understanding, and listen to people. Thank you, Jane. In Thuringowa, I've contacted over 2,000 people in my last 3 years. I've phoned them, I've run surveys, and I thank every single one of them. And 98% of them wanted to provide people a choice when they are faced with a terminal illness in their own circumstances. 98%. I've run polls. But we've gone right around the state. It didn't matter if we were in Mount Isa or Longreach, up in Mossman, Cairns, down here, everyone said the same thing, just give us choice. We are elected to listen to our people who voted us. I say with a conscience vote, do that. I know we'll have our personal views, and I respect that, but let's also think of the people that we are representing in this state on this day. Let's be on the right side of history. Let's provide people a compassionate, dignified death, end the needless suffering, and just show real compassion. I've said and listened to Dr Will Cairns, who said he'd been in Townsville now for delivering palliative care now for 40-odd years, seeing thousands of people die. He's a palliative care specialist who said not all pain and suffering can be relieved with the most modern specialised palliative care, and talked about graphic, horrible cancers, head and neck cancers, pelvic cancers, where people just wanted to die. He believes in giving people choice, and I thank Dr Will Cairns for bravely coming before the committee not once but twice and informing MPs of why it's so important to provide people with choice at end of life. Palliative care, great. Hats off to everyone that's in it. I've seen it myself, my own family. I've seen people provided with love and support. But when it doesn't go far enough, that's our time to step in. We have an opportunity here to do that, act with compassion. And I ask every MP, make sure you've read these. Make sure you've read the reports. Understand what people are saying. Understand your electorates. To the Deputy Chair, thank you for your very personal contribution. I want to end this by saying it should be above politics. It should certainly be above religion. This is about people. Let's give people the choice. Let's let them make the decision on voluntary assisted dying. Thank you, Speaker.
Madam Deputy Speaker.